Hello, can everyone hear me? Excellent. Hi guys. Just checking, can someone let me know that they can definitely hear me? Perfect, thank you, Lauren. Excellent, right, Dino is waiting in the wings, so I'm just going to give people a little bit more time to tune in. I'm going to let him in now. A little bit of time to connect, so I don't want him to be hanging around for too long. Here he is. Hello.
Hello.
Hi Dino, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm
Good
feeling
to see
quite
you.
I'm feeling quite proud of myself for actually being able to do what we just did. Like
I
first
know,
time.
me too. I know. I've just been asking people if they could hear me. So very
Brilliant.
speedy, awesome work.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I know we've got a lot of people interested in this session. So we haven't got long, we've only got half an hour. So I'm going to get going and hopefully I can see a lot more people joining as we're talking now. So hello everyone and welcome to this session of Imbibe Live Online, sponsored by Mezcal Santir. I'm Millie Milliken, Deputy Editor at Imbibe UK, and I am joined here today, obviously, by the lovely Deano Moncrieffe, owner of Hacha in London and General Spirits and Agave extraordinaire. I think it's fair
Thank
to
you.
say.
Thank
You're
you
very
very much.
welcome. Over the next half an hour or so, we're going to be discussing the upcoming project that Dino announced on Instagram a week or so ago, which he is setting up to help eradicate racism within the hospitality industry. And we'll also be touching on a few of his own experiences and actual solutions to that problem. Anyone can post questions, so if you'd like to do that, please do, and I will try and get around to them at some point during the interview. But firstly, thank you so much for joining us, Dino. I think it was a while since I've seen you, just before
Yeah.
lockdown, I think, isn't it?
It was. I think it was was it Margarita Day?
It was, it was. You
Yeah.
dropped off some lovely mirror margaritas for me. Well,
Yes.
a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
But before we delve into the meat of this discussion, it might be helpful for those people who might not know, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a brief history of your career within the industry, so people have an idea of all the different roles that you've had and all the different places that you worked. That would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I've been in the industry for quite a few years now. Actually started off working in Paris in 19. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And yeah, that was my first job. And then I travelled around Europe working as a bartender. From there, I went back, came back to the UK, to my hometown of Birmingham, where I managed quite a few different venues. I worked as a God, this is sounding. I'm actually thinking about all the things I've done now. So I've worked as a bartender, as a restaurant manager. I've worked in hotels. I've worked as an area manager. Worked as a chef for a while as well. Been brand ambassador for various different brands now for about 15 years. And obviously I guess in present day, most recently be Don Julio, which I've and Tequila. Worked as a mixologist for reserve brands, Diageo reserve brands as well. So it's been really varied, but and travelled quite a lot as well. It's been very varied, but it's also given me a really good foundation to have a better understanding of what it means to be a good bartender, what it means to be a good, I think that the more that you do, the more that you can do in different parts of the industry, the better you'll become and more rounded you'll become as whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. It's better to have that much deeper understanding of how everything works. Yeah, so that's basically it.
Cool. And that
Yeah,
brings us up to the current day, obviously, with Hacha in London,
yeah,
fantastic bar that I'm sure everyone is very much aware of. And that brings us really up to the current day, or more specifically Father's Day, in relation to the post that you put up on Instagram,
yeah,
obviously referencing the global dialogue that's going on at the moment
yeah,
surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. obviously following the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I just thought before we get into the content of that post, I wondered whether you'd be okay just sort of telling us a few examples of what you've experienced throughout your career in terms of racism in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a tough one. I just actually want to touch very quickly on the post on Father's Day as well.
Yeah.
It was one of those where, you know, it's Father's Day. It's a time when everyone is celebrating sort of family. But for me, with everything that had been happening in the world, I've just become a dad in the last 2 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I just felt this overriding sense of sadness, really, in thinking about the things that have happened to me, just not, you know, on a personal level, but also within the drinks industry, and some of it that just gets ignored, and some of it gets washed under the carpet, and it's all linked together, right? I mean, I'm not kind of in any way sort of trying to say that my experiences are comparable to those that have, you know, experienced loss of life, but I think that the lack of understanding of different cultures is actually at the DNA of extreme things when it does go terribly wrong, and people do end up losing their lives. It's all just very, very sad, and I think there's a bigger issue from a society point of view, and from a drinks industry point of view. I mean, again, with the project, I don't want this project to be all about. It's not me. It's a bigger picture than that. But, you know, if I talk about my instances and the experiences that I've had, many times it's been very casual. You know, I've judged world class all over the world. There's probably 3 different countries that I've been in, and I won't name them, but 3 different occasions in the last couple of years where I've been chased down the street after doing a world class session, and I'm pretty sure it's not because I was wearing glasses and a suit. I know what the reasons were, and it's a very easy thing to, and I didn't go back. You know, this is a thing where it becomes an issue when I actually felt like I couldn't speak to anyone about it. So I didn't tell, apart from my partner, Emma, I didn't tell anyone about it, because I just thought, if I start mentioning this, it's going to be, there may be, you know, it's probably going to be ripples, etc. And how do I actually talk about what's happened? And that's, like I say, a couple of occasions. And again, I don't want to embarrass anyone or to talk about anyone in particular, but there was an occasion when I was at a team night out, and we went to celebrate what had been a very good year. We were playing pool, and we were playing in groups of 2, and one of the guys who I thought was a really good friend and was in my team turned around to me and said, "Oh, don't forget, Deano, that's a snooker cue. It's not a spear." And I was just thinking, did I just hear correctly? Did you just say that, insinuate that is a spear, and that I'm a spear chucker and dehumanizing me in such a way? I found it really offensive, and I actually called him out on it in front of the group. But what happened was, there was a lot of, you know, come on, Deano, he didn't mean it. Let's not. It's been a good night. Let's not spoil the night. You know, let's. You know, it wasn't anything that bad. And my question back to that was, like, would it have been said if it was, you know, if he was the only white person in that group, and he was playing snooker or pool with a load of black people or people of color? He probably wouldn't have said that. Would he have said it if the CEO of Diageo, for example, was standing right next to me? I doubt it very much. So, you know, I could go on that, but I think it's that's just one thing that I can think of that was particularly upsetting. There's other things that have happened that's very casual. You know, it's sometimes I remember once actually in a group presentation, there was probably about 100 people in the room, and someone was on stage doing a big presentation, and there was a black, I think it might have been Kanye West or P. Diddy that was shown on the screen. And I remember someone shouted out, "Oh, it looks like Deano." You know, and you're thinking, is that where we're at? You know, and that's what I mean about casual racism, right? So it's all the stuff that you experience. It's many times I've been in a bar and I've heard stuff and you kind of just let it go. But there comes a point when we need to do something about this, and we need to start. I guess the challenge is for me not to feel like who can I speak to if this happens again, but also those people around that heard what happened need to be braver and to be able to stand up and say, you're out of order, that shouldn't be said, what on earth were you thinking? We need to educate you about how insensitive those comments were. So those I honestly could go on, but I think that, as I say, I don't want this to be just about me. I think I've painted a picture well enough about what instances have happened.
And where do you think at this moment in time the industry actually stands when it comes to racism? Obviously there's a lot of conversations going on at the moment. It's a shame that it's taken what it has for them to be had, but sort of coming into the beginning of this year, where do you think the industry stood before this happened?
I mean, I think that we are in a very poor place. I think that we are not in a good situation when it comes to celebrating cultural diversity and celebrating the lives of people of colour and iconic individuals that have made a lasting impression and positive impression in society and many communities around the world. I think that we're massively and hugely underrepresented in people of colour within this wonderful industry that we work in, and that saddens me a little bit. I would ask people if they think about it honestly, how many people of colour do you know that are bar operators and owners? How many brand ambassadors do you know? How many wonderful bartenders do you know that are, people of colour or from an ethnic minority that have wonderful personalities that would be amazing brand ambassadors but never get the opportunity to do that? Why is there not? And also, what are the big companies doing enough? What are they doing? Are they doing enough to actually drive recruitment in the right areas? And these are some of the things that I'm trying to address and look at. And I think actually it might be worth saying as well here that this isn't something that I've done as a knee-jerk reaction to the unfortunate events. This has been in my mind for the last 2-3 years, probably longer actually. But I've never had the the time or the mental headspace to be able to do that because of work commitments. But now, from tomorrow, I'm going to have a lot more time to be able to do the things that I really want to do. And I also want to just reiterate and make this very clear that this is a totally independent platform that I'm hoping to develop. It's not going to be backed by any drinks companies. It's completely, however much it costs is going to come out of my pocket. The time that it takes is going to be completely down to me, to work on it. So I want to be clear on that it's not backed by anyone at all.
Cool. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about what you've got planned? I know it's very early stages. I know you said you've been thinking about it and it's going to be very challenging, and obviously the last few months have been a whirlwind. Just maybe talk us through the first few steps and where you envisage it going. That would be great.
I'm just feeling quite, actually just talking about it's quite emotional. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's joined. I'm going to try and hold it together and not get emotional.
Thank you.
But it really does warm my heart a lot to see that there's so many people that have joined. So thank you very much. So the project that I'm working on is called Equal Measures, and it's going to be a platform where I hopefully will develop a place where people can share ideas and things that they've done to help eradicate racism within the industry through education. It's going to work in 3 stages, so I'll talk you through that. So essentially it's about diversity and inclusion, and it's going to take a collective effort, and most importantly a willingness to learn and educate by a lot of people, not just myself. And it's, I guess, the heart of everything that I'm doing is trying to help people understand why diversity is important, why underrepresentation of black people and people of colour in our industry isn't a good thing, and why it's not progressive, and understanding what we can all do to make a difference in that. So the 3 phases are going to be phase 1, which will be focus groups and discussions which will take place with hopefully many people who are serious about equality and have a platform to be able to demonstrate that. And if you think about some of the amazing bars that we have within the UK and across Europe, think about some of the great following that these venues have on Instagram and on Facebook. They have a voice to be able to say something positive, and to be able to make a change and make a difference. And so that's what this is really about. So the first phase, I say, is going to be I don't have all the answers here, so I really want to get into some great discussions with, media titles, with influencers, with big drinks companies, with bartenders, with brand ambassadors, with everyone about what we can do collectively to make a change and make a difference. And that's going to shape quite a lot of what happens in phase 3, which I'll get to in a second. But the first stage, which will take place between July and the end of August and the end of September, will be phase 1, which will all be about having focus groups, bringing people together, having a discussion, open discussions about what steps we can do, and any ideas that people have, whether that's events, whether it's ongoing initiatives, etc. I think it's going to be good to have a really open conversation about where we are and what we can all do better. Phase 2, which will be hopefully a key point, will be in October, and that's going to coincide with Black History Month in the UK. So I think it's really clear that Black history shouldn't be celebrated just one month of the year, but it should be celebrated all the time. But as it is something that people have become more aware of, I think it would be only right to actually and it will give us enough time to be able to do the right things, to be able to engage with people on that particular time. So what I will be asking for everyone will be for everyone in that during Black History Month to make a commitment to do something to educate both their staff within their venue and their consumers around a person of colour or a Black individual or someone who has influenced society in a really positive way, and to do something around that individual to celebrate them, and that can be it can be, if you think about, sometimes we in the drinks industry, and especially as a bartender, we get so many cocktails that are inspired by individuals. This is inspired by Salvador Dali or so and so. And we come up with these great cocktails, but how many of those are actually educational and give back to people? And I think that if we can do that in a way where we all do that collectively, I'm ambitiously going to say I'd love to have a minimum of about 200 venues involved in this, which is obviously very ambitious and is going to take a lot of work, but that's what my target is. And it can be something as simple as, this is a Martin Luther King a cocktail that's inspired by Martin Luther King. Here's a little bit of information about him to take away as well, and the recipe. It can be something as simple as that, right? But what it does, it actually educates. In a time when we're talking about Black history, it educates consumers, but it also gives a real sort of nod to people that have made a big difference within society. So that's phase 2. I hope that's clear.
When you say it like that, it sounds like something that is so simple to do, and yet it's just not done. It's
never been done. And then phase 3 is more about community outreach and education. And I really hope that at some point, which will take place in the new year, we get to a point where collectively, and I'll be calling on all of the brand ambassadors that I know that work in many different companies, to get out there and to educate people in the right areas. Are we doing enough to recruit from the right areas? Are we going into inner cities? Are there enough events that support Black history and Black culture? And one of the things that I'm really, and I would ask the question to everyone who's joined is, do we in this country and in Europe, do we only celebrate cultural moments if they can be monetized and made, you know, and people can make a great profit from? And I think that the answer is probably, unfortunately, yes, we do. What do we do to celebrate enough from, you know, the cultural diversity that exists in this country? And I'll give you a perfect example, right? So, as you know, I've been working in tequila for quite a long time. And we celebrate and we educate quite a lot around Cinco de Mayo, Day of the Dead, dates within the Mexican calendar, and they're very important dates and everything. And I see it as a really great opportunity, and obviously it's a culture that I'm very close to and I have a lot of a lot of passion for. But we do that and we celebrate that, and everything that we do, when I do personally, is I give people as much education as possible. I'll give leaflets, I'll give flyers, I'll do a little stand up and do a little presentation and a demonstration so people know why we're doing it. We don't do anything like that at all to celebrate any of the diversity and the cultural history that is so rich within this country. So we really need to be better at that. And I think that it's also, you know, another question that I would ask is, the big companies that are out there, the big brands that are out there, do you really do enough to celebrate diversity and to recruit from? I mean, it's all very well and good to have a diversity program within your company, right? That's great. So it could be a big hotel group that says that they celebrate diversity, but what's the evidence of that? How transparent are you with how that's been done? Who was actually on the board or in the discussion group, in a focus group, when that diversity group was thought up? You know, were there people of colour who are actually influencing that? You know, what measures are in place to help people feel more secure if they are from, you know, an ethnic minority and they want to speak up about something that they feel uncomfortable about? You know, and I would say that, you know, I think there's a lot of uncomfortable questions that need to be asked, and I would say that one of them is, like, you know, I'm not just picking on hotel groups, but I think this is quite an interesting one. I've travelled all around the world, been to some amazing places. There's been places where predominantly the population is black, and I've walked into a 5-star hotel and the only black people that I've seen are porters that are working in that establishment. How is that right? You know, and the massive responsibility of those companies that have, you know, that are in those venues and that are in those locations to be better at what they're doing. And I'd like to, you know, I'm going to be asking those questions. Why the, you know, 20 or 30% of your workforce are people of colour in the background and not seen? You know, what does that say to the people that are staying in the hotels? What messages does that give about inclusion? So, you know, there's a lot of work to be done. I don't have all the answers, but I am really prepared, and hopefully there's people on this chat now that are prepared to stand up with me and ask those uncomfortable questions to the big organisations and to back me up and say it's not good enough. You need to do better. And you need to be more transparent in what it is that you're actually doing when you say that you have a diversity program in place. And this isn't just about, you know, this is about, in many ways, it's about equality, full stop. You know, there's a lot of momentum and rightly so around pride at the moment as well. And I think that all of it is just massively important. I think we've come to a point now where we do need to be a little bit more inclusive in everything. So there you go.
We're running a little bit into time now, but I'm going to try and get a couple more questions because obviously there's so much that I want to ask you, and I know everyone watching wants to hear as well. You kind of touched on, obviously, brands, they need to do a lot more. What about, and venues as well, but obviously the on-trade is full of loads of people from loads of different professions, you know, including publications, journalists, influencers, bloggers, things like that. It needs to be a kind of industry-wide effort, really. I mean, I think I saw yesterday a certain rum brand announced that it was going to be changing its name because of the connotations to do with its name and things like that. What do you think people other than the drinks brands need to be thinking of when it comes to being more diverse and sort of being open to criticism and, you know, feedback from people within the industry, as in, you know, bartenders and sommeliers?
I think it's. I think I touched on it. It's a willingness to have a discussion, to have the
Yeah.
conversation, no matter how uncomfortable it is. It's a willingness to be able to say, actually, we may not have got this right. I'll give you an example, right? So, talk about brands, and this, I think it all starts with the key decision makers, right? So those we do have people of color that make decisions within our
Mhm.
in some very important ones. It's only a handful of people, and I think about this, and I've probably worked in my life. I've probably worked on close to, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 different brands. Okay, and I've seen probably an equal amount, 40 or 50 different brand worlds and target consumers, and never have I seen a brand world or a target consumer that is a person of color. Never. Right. So I've seen the images that people put up. Oh, the target consumer for our brand is going to be this, it's going to be that, and then they'll show
Yeah.
these great images of, so and so is she's a forward thinker, she's a leader in her group, she's a creative person, or he's a creative person, and their social group is this big, and etc, etc, etc. And then the images will be there, and there'll be a token black person in the background, but never at the forefront. This is where it all starts, right? So if you think about what this is think about all the brands that exist that actually are consumed by such a wide, diverse group of people within this country and across Europe. There has to be more done about that, and I think it all starts with that. That is why perhaps you don't get the recruitment from the ethnic minorities or people of color, because you're not speaking to them correctly, or you're not speaking to them in a way that they can understand. And it's the same thing, a publication's doing enough, a media outlet's doing enough to be able to talk to people how much of it is actually geared towards sort of middle class white sensibilities. And it's a provocation. I don't have the answer, but I think that if people were to look at the whatever titles they work for, or whoever they represent, if they are media, or if they're influencers, or if they're whatever it is that you're doing, that you represent, think about how much diversity is actually is there, and how much is done to include people of color. There's not a lot.
Well, it's definitely something that we at Imbibe are currently addressing, and I'm hoping a lot of people across the industry are as well. Just quickly, do you think you could just explain how people, if they want to get involved in the project, do they just get in touch with you? Are you going to be making any more announcements? Obviously, you said you're going to be sort of working over the next couple of days to get things going. How can people sort of let you know that they want to be involved in maybe one of those focus groups?
Well, what I'm going to do in the first instance, please do reach out to me directly, and then what I'm going to do once the focus group dates have been set up in August, what I'd like to do is reach out to the likes of yourself and other publications, and hope that you'll be able to spread the word and let people know what's going on. But certainly in the first instance, I'd love people to just reach out to me. It is a really ambitious project, and there's, like I say, there's 3 phases to it. The numbers are quite punchy of what I want to achieve, but unless I set the targets really high, it won't make an impact. And this is just the first step. It's got to be something. This is why I believe that I've never really had the opportunity to do it before, because it's going to take time, it's going to take commitment, and it's going to take a bit of it's going to take a lot of hard work, but I'm ready for it. I'm up for the fight to make sure that things start to change. And as I say, I think something as simple as the Black History Month and getting people engaged to celebrate, creating cocktails to celebrate iconic individuals would be really impactful in the first instance.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all we've got time for today, I'm afraid, Deano. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for your post on Instagram as well. It's just fantastic to see people stepping up in the industry, and I know a lot of people have been really supportive of
Yes.
you, and I know we at Imbibe are really looking forward to seeing how this project sort of starts to take shape. And, you know, do feel free, as we've said, to just get in touch with us, and we will do what we can to help along the way, of course.
Thank you very much. Can I just say as well a massive thank you to you and to Imbibe for giving me the first platform to be able to talk about this. It's really, like, honestly, and everyone who's joined as well, seriously, I'm holding my emotions in check because it's quite an emotional project, but I'm yeah, I've managed to hold it together. So
well done.
So much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, thank you, as Deano said, to everyone for watching as well. It's fantastic that you've all tuned in to this session at Imbibe Live Online, supported by Mezcal Santir, which is very fitting considering talking to Deano. And thank you, Deano, again for talking to us. All of the sessions that are going to be included in Imbibe Live Online are going to be available on demand. So if you want to watch this again, it's going to be on the Instagram grid. And please do share it with as many people as you can, because the more people that listen to this in the industry, the better. So yeah, if you want to check out anything else that's going on, we've got a session coming up on supporting your staff, on returning back to venues after COVID, probably in the next few days for a lot of people. And I'm going to be back here as well at 4:30 talking to Birmingham's Alex Claridge of The Wilderness about making his own gin. So there's plenty more to listen. Thanks again, Deano. Lovely to see you. We'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah, we'll
Cheers.
take care. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.